All right, next up, we have Daniela Kandel, who I got to hear very briefly some of the work she's doing with smallholder farms a few months ago, and again, there's TED talks about ideas worth spreading. That's important, but we're aiming to focus on those who are actually doing the work on the ground, real results today, not things that are experimental. And so excited to have someone here who's actually doing such a wider variety of things than she's going to talk about today, but who's helping smallholder farmers today make a change in their processes. So welcome Daniela up.
But what I want to talk to you today is about two things primarily. One is the innovation process and a systems approach to the transitions and the regeneration that we want to see in the world. And second are the smallholder farmers, the ones that we keep honestly leaving behind. And all of these transitions, and all of our thought about decarbonization, regenerative agriculture, we are first and foremost thinking about the large farms here in the US, maybe in Europe. But the smallholder farmers are no less concerned, by the way, about these issues and about the quality of their soil and their futures of their family. Their livelihoods depend on it. So just to give you a little bit of the context, right? In the world, there are about 600 million smallholder farmers, right? It's about 95% of farmers globally are operating under 5 hectares, 84% under 2 hectares, which is the population that I work with primarily. When we look at India specifically, which is where we started our operations and at the moment are sticking to that market, it's about a quarter of all those farmers. So somewhere between 125 to 150 million small farmers in the country. And when we look at regenerative agriculture, we look at the climate conversation and its intersection with agriculture. Only about 4% of investment in climate, only 4% of the money in climate is even going to agriculture. So of course, almost none of that is actually seeing the smallholders. And so what I want to talk about is how do we create a system where we don't leave them behind, where we bring the innovations that exist. You know, we've heard some of them this morning, or right before me. How do we bring those innovations to start already working for those farmers? And how do we leverage the systems that do exist while respecting the farmers as business people that are looking to the future of their families and their long-term success? Now, smallholders, unfortunately, are the most pollutive when you look at, nutrition, per hectare in their practices, right? And they don't really have a choice. They're operating, especially in India, they get a lot of subsidies to use these chemicals that we're used to seeing in all of our food. They use a lot of water because water is free in this region and is not priced at all. And so it's really inefficient, and they create a lot of plastic waste as well, which they live with then. And it's beautiful to see that there's local entrepreneurship that is actually dealing with that. But what we attempt to do at Evergreen Innovation, or what we are doing actually now, I can say, is we are looking and understanding the needs of the farmers on the ground, and then sourcing solutions that exist today that are targeting large-scale farming, that are getting their investment from that, and helping them come into the Indian market, come into the smallholders. We're taking the risk from them, helping adapt those products, working with those solution providers so that we can develop the right business models for them to sell to the smallholders. Not only that, we also work with local banking systems, guarantors, to ensure that they have access to the finance they need to make these relatively, compared to what we're seeing in the US, small investments in their future. And this is a very unique, I hate the slide, I hate the fact that my face is there, but it's a very unique collaboration because it's actually started as a collaboration between 3 nonprofits that we decided after 8 years or 7.5 years of operation, we decided to spin it off into a for-profit company about 2 years ago. And so we came together. It started, my previous role, I was working as Innovation Bridges director at a nonprofit that was focused on innovation implementation to solve global challenges. So I had the absolute privilege of dealing with innovation implementation in, New Zealand, Thailand, Brazil, Colombia, Texas, you're anywhere and everywhere. We were building these programs which were about bringing innovations to the ground to actually address the challenges and aggregating the knowledge and the stakeholders that are needed for any innovator to be successful, as well as the continuity of finance and their access to finance throughout that process. And in that process, we found a partnership with Syngenta Foundation for Sustainable Agriculture. Their expertise with smallholder farmers. They really developed not only an expertise in what is happening on the ground, but access. The ability to reach each and every farmer on the ground, understand their needs, have the conversations with them. So every time we attempted to introduce a new innovation, we were able to get real feedback on the ground from the farmers. We like this, we don't like this, this works, but it's too complicated, it's too expensive, whatever it is, the feedback loop was better than anything we had ever seen, and we've worked with a variety of these nonprofit and philanthropic players that are catering to these communities. And so, that's what started our project. And we were running it for 5 years before we said, you know what? We're seeing some of our companies selling in millions of dollars now in sales in these markets. There's something here. Now, as nonprofits, and this is my personal belief, there's only so much you can do when you need to, continuously fundraise for every dollar, for every investment, for every activity. And unfortunately, foundations do tend to refocus their efforts, change their priorities. And that's when we decided to bring in Milken Innovation Center, another nonprofit. Their expertise is in financial innovation for impact and for developmental work. And so we came together to develop this concept of a for-profit model that would be able to take a small piece of the success of those companies and bring it back into the cycle to work with new companies and bring in new innovations for those smallholder farmers. I was very, very grateful to then have the Lemelson Foundation come in and invest kind of the first catalytic capital so that I started the company in January last year. So quickly, there are two challenges, right? On the one hand, we have a supply challenge, access to innovations. There are two basic categories of innovations that exist in this space. One are innovations that are created for large-scale farming. Fairly enough, that's where the model is, that's where the money is, that's where their growth is going to come from. So those solutions are generally not adapted. The business models don't fit a smallholder farmer context, and therefore they don't really reach the market. The second kind of innovations are innovations developed by aid organizations, multilateral organizations, foundations, who generally will invest in early stage development of concepts specifically for this community, and even a few pilots, and then leave the companies to fend for themselves, which ultimately results in them discontinuing their work, at least in these communities, if not at all. On the other hand, smallholder farmers, as you can imagine, many of them live on very, very low incomes. Their entire livelihoods, their entire families are dependent on this 1-2 hectares of land that they're working. And so they are very risk averse. They do not trust easily, nor should they, because they cannot afford to take that risk. And that's our role, to come in and take that risk for them, engage with them to bring those innovations forward. So we work with a partnership. This is a Syngenta Foundation spinoff in India. And this is an entity that does training and capacity building in the villages. So we have these localized entrepreneurs on the village levels and access to about 2 million farmers. And that's what I like to call our home base or our sandbox. Those 2 million farmers get support and mentorship from the AGF Foundation to implement their basic practices, to change their basic practices to increase their yields and to solve their basic needs. Based on that network, we then understand their challenges and will bring in innovations from all over the world to address those. Now, I could speak a lot about the innovative process, and I'm happy to have that conversation later. We've designed these processes all around the world. I think the essence of it is it's a gated process, stages that we take with those companies to prove that the technology works, to prove that the business model is working, to prove that the farmers are interacting correctly and effectively with the solutions. And we created a business model where we take revenues from success. So all of the work done, and sometimes it's 2.5 years that we work with these companies before they pay anything to anyone. We take that risk, and only when they start selling, the value is created for the farmers and the value is created for the companies. Only then does that come back and finance the next generation of companies that we work with. And I think I can pause. I can pause here. I'll only say, this started actually as a focus on food security, and this is the example of the company that we worked with that proved to us that there was a business model that we could develop here. It is a catalytic impact first model. I'm not hiding that, but there is a sustainable model here that we believe we can create. And we proved that we can increase the yields, we can improve soil health, and we can work with the farmers on the village level to implement these innovations that transform their futures. I won't talk to you guys about the Sustainable Development Goals. I think you all know them well enough to imagine how important this work is to us and to them.
Isn't we all appreciate the challenges we're facing are complex, and a soil innovation, a process of growing new food is not going to be sufficient because we're still working within a marketplace. And so we have to have innovations that help within that part of the relationship. And this is, we need multifaceted solutions. And so having solutions that can empower farmers on the economic front are as important today as the soil innovations themselves. So appreciate that. What's the thing that would be most helpful to you? How can we help?
So first of all, everything we do is through these sort of public-private partnerships. I couldn't have done any of this, and we couldn't have done any of this without the right partnerships that understand the importance of what we're doing and come in to support not only financially, but actually on the ground with there are endless challenges on a daily basis, and we need the best people thinking through that I need the best people thinking through that with me. And I am starting to fundraise early next year.
How much are you looking for?
About 5 million.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Well, we can certainly help with the kind of mind trust. We have an incredible community, so let's talk after.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's been a privilege.